Well, hello there. My name is HW, and thank you so much for watching Tone Junkie TV. Guys, I did a thing. I did something that I was going to say I'm not proud of it, but actually I'm very proud of it. Look at that. Just, oops, what did I do there? I bought 3 of the same guitar, and I don't even know if I should feel bad about it. Truthfully though, I don't really feel bad at all. I love these guitars. They're really great. And since my wife doesn't watch Tone Junkie TV, she's completely lost track of how many guitars I own. And she'll never see this video. She has no idea I have 3 of the same guitar. I mean, that just sounds ridiculous. But why? And how did I get here? Well, if you watch the channel, you know this guitar probably as the #1 Tone Junkie guitar. It's the one that's in almost all the demos and everything. And early on, this was actually my second JM Pro. I don't have the first one any longer. I did a video a long time ago where I was comparing JM Pros, and I bought 2 for that video, and I ended up returning them just because I didn't want to spend the money on the guitar at that point. But as soon as I got rid of it, I regretted it. So I actually found this one in blue. I think it was from Vision Guitars in San Jose, California, and love this thing. Just really love this thing. It's like my #1. This has been the reference guitar on so many Tone Junkie profile packs. It's still a guitar that I test every single pack with, but now I actually use like 3 or 4 guitars to test all the packs. I use a humbucker guitar, I use this guitar, I use Goldie, and then sometimes I use the Telly or like the SSV. It depends on what I'm doing for humbuckers, but anyway. This is #1. This spoiled me to other guitars. And once I had this, I just missed my Suhr Alt T Pro that had thornbuckers. So I bought this gold JM Pro, and this is not Goldie, although it is a gold guitar, and I love this thing. Now, something funny happened. I was playing the P90 guitar all the time, and I was getting ready at church to do this record, and I had kind of dialed all my sounds in and everything really for the blue P90 guitar. But I got this one in, and my plan for this guitar originally was to get it and put thornbuckers in it. See, Suhr at the time did not make any JM Pros with thornbuckers, and I really wanted thornbuckers because I missed them from that other guitar I had. And my plan was to put them in here. But I made the mistake of playing this guitar live one weekend, and I loved it. It sounded so good, and I thought, wow, this sounds incredible with the sounds I dialed in for my S90s, that blue one. And I went, this is crazy. So I played it again, and on the live listen back, I just thought, this sounds just killer. I love the way it sits in the mix. So I've never wanted to change it, and I ended up recording doing that record, which is called There's a Name by a group called Church House. I did that with this guitar, and it's on the videos and it's on all the songs and stuff. And I just kept it around because I like having, whenever we pull those songs out and play them, I like having the rig and the guitar that I did those tracks with. And everyone always jokes, they go, hey, it sounds just like the record. And that's because it's the exact same signal chain. This, Kemper, it's great. It sounds like the record's playing, only the record is me, and I'm not struggling to get the tone. I've got every component perfectly lined up. And then last but not least, here is Silver. I guess we'll call him Silver. Why not? His name's Silver now. This is a JM Pro that's not like a standard Suhr model, but it's actually like a spec from a dealer. So Suhr lets dealers spec out different guitars, and they order in batches for like store exclusives. And so Max Music had this and a bunch of other JM Pros available on Reverb for a while. This one sold a while ago, and then I picked it up used after that, which is the best way to get anything. It's got a roasted maple neck, and you know, it's got this checking and stuff, which you can kind of see on there. Hopefully you can see some checking. And then it's got thornbuckers, push-push pot for splitting these. And then the saddle, it's a 510, it's a Goto 510 bridge, but the saddles have been changed to the modern saddles rather than the bent steel that is common on the vintage versions. So this guitar is very similar to the other ones, apart from those little changes, but it feels very much at home for me. And it's got thornbuckers. And that is the thing. Feeling at home is really the thing I'm after. I know the conventional wisdom tells you you need a Strat and a Tele, and then you need like a Les Paul, and then it's okay to have something other than that, like more modern. Like maybe if you're a P-Dub guy, you get a Veritas. Maybe if you're a rock guy, you get a Suhr Modern. You know, maybe if you're I don't know, just you get something. Maybe you get a PRS, right? I like that. And I like different guitars for their feel. I like different guitars for what they are. But I also like being able to come back and sort of treating guitars like a platform. And what I found in the JM Pro is that this body is just so comfortable to me. The 510 Goto bridge they put on here, it makes me never want to play another bridge. I mean, it's the trem I want. I'm able to just be expressive and not think about the guitar so much, but at the same time I feel very connected to it, and it allows it to serve as a platform on which I can put pickups that I really like. And then my sound is changing, but my feel isn't changing so much. And I don't know, is that a good thing? Okay, truthfully, I don't know if it is, because if I grab a guitar like this Trini Lopez, it's just sort of, it's a completely different beast. This thing in some ways feels like a cello to me. It's like, I don't know, it feels extra long. It's not, it's a normal Gibson scale length, and it just sort of, the strings are a little more tension. It just has this big feel tone, and I really do feel like I picked up a different type of instrument, like a cello or something. And I like that, and I like fighting it a little bit. This old 67 guitar, you know, gives a little more resistance, but I'm not always 100% sure that I want that all the time. So this is not my main guitar. But that push-pull and that resistance, it makes you play differently, and I play Trini a little differently. I sort of lean on a little more of the classic rock and the big chords, and I don't know, I use the pickups differently. You know, the neck is bright and the bridge is very bright, but it's just a different type of vintagey growl. Speaking of guitars that make you play way differently, we all play differently on a Strat. As soon as I pick up a Strat, it's just double stop city, and I love going to those 2 and 4 positions, and you know, instantly I like fantasize about being John Mayer and stuff. And I remember like taking my first girlfriend to a John Mayer concert, and her just absolutely like swooning at John and staring out the window on the way to the concert, and like, you know, just like listening to his tunes. And I was like, my God, this guy is a magician. He has the hearts of girls he's never even known before. Now, obviously, I'm not John Mayer, and we really aren't trying to achieve the same things musically. Although I will say this, at some level, everybody does start playing guitar to get chicks. I mean, come on, John's list of celebrity girlfriends could fill up a We Are the World reunion stage. And for me, my wife, and the mother of my 2 children, we actually started dating after I, you know, played acoustic guitar at a campfire, like in high school. So, you know, different roads, but really all going to the same place. I put out some of these clips yesterday, but I wanted to put these guitars in the context of what I do. So here's a couple clips from like a P-Dub style thing I did with these 3 guitars, and you can sort of hear how they all sit differently in the mix and how they all do a couple different things. Now, if you want to see that track in its entirety, you can check out the last video on the channel. The guitars are going in and out, it's switching all around, and you really get a feel for how these guitars sound different. One thing I immediately noticed when I put it up was people left comments, some saying blue cuts the best, no, gold cuts the best, no, silver cuts the best. It's really interesting how we hear all these things differently. But a lot of it comes down to preference. One of the main differences that I always sort of notice, and maybe I struggle with this a little bit in things I play, is that the primary difference between rock and P-dub guitar, praise and worship Sunday morning guitar, obviously the delays and everything, but it's where that mid-range and what people I think mean by the word cut. For me in rock music, a cutting guitar is mid-rangey, it's shallower on the low end, and it's often a little darker on the top end. There's like a high-end roll-off, and it's that vocal mid-range. For me, that's this guitar. It does that thing the most, and when I'm doing the more rock and stuff, I really go after this guitar. But I'll tell you one problem I have noticed. That extra vocal mid-range quality with the roll-off and the highs, it actually puts me with too much information at this sort of, I don't know, mid-rangey area where I get the feedback that I'm competing a bit with the female vocals. I don't notice it as much with the male vocals that I get that feedback, but I've had sound guys telling me, especially with one worship leader at my church, that this guitar seems to get on her frequency level a little too much. So I have to be conscious of that. And as a musician, I really want to serve the song. I want to serve the listener and the people around me. And it's not just about my guitar solo, even though that might be the thing I practice the most on a Saturday night or whatever during the week. I want to serve the song. To me, where this thing shines is this real sort of extra chimey top end. And on the bridge there, you know, I switched to the bridge in some of those clips, and you can sort of hear this pickup has a really beautiful, warm sort of mid-range quality that even though I think it chimes, it's not overly thin like a Strat might be in certain situations, but it really just provides a really lovely vintagey mid-range with enough sort of higher end chime on it. And that sort of the frequencies of this where it's not so forced in the mid-range, not so honky, I feel like it actually fits really well with female vocals as well. Now to me, this guitar has been the best of sort of both worlds, and in a way I feel like it combines both of those sounds. This guitar has a sort of chimey top end. They did a really good job with these brighter Thornbucker PAF style pickups. It also has a little more mid-range, a little more of that humbucker compression. Compression's an important thing for that humbucker sound. And you can sort of hear in some of the clips how it's very compressed. In fact, listen to some of these clips from the Suhrs. I had the Suhrs check out these guitars, and I'm going to play them back to back and really show you. Listen to the amount of compression and the sort of low end and the high end. And I'm going to try to answer which is the chimiest, which is the rockinest, and which is the sort of most compressed. Those are the Prime Minister T15 profiles, which you can find in the Junkie Studio Pack. To me, the blue one is the most high-endy, chimey, but compared to that, do you hear the extra compression and extra fullness? It even pushes the front of the profile a little harder on the silver JM Pro. So the Thornbuckers seem to have a little more gain. It has that same, almost identical to me, high-end chime. That's really why I feel like the silver one is like in between the gold and the blue one, right? It's like the Thornbuckers have this sort of high-end chime of those P90s. They've got some of that. It might even be a little richer, but it's got more compression in the bass notes. Then you've got the gold one that's the most round, and it sort of rocks the most, but I understand if people feel like it doesn't quite have the high-end articulation. It actually does if you like dig into it. You can make it sound bright, but as soon as it's sort of like there's more compression in those SSVs, and the EQ is such that the mids sort of overpower the other stuff. If you want to hear the difference in compression, check out these little tiny clips I put back to back. You can really hear how compressed each pickup sounds next to itself. I'm going to do them all twice. What's super interesting about that is how the compression changes the way we feel about the pickup. I don't actually think the SSVs have less high end. They just have so much more mid-range. It like pushes out the other stuff. The other thing they have less of is bass. They have like just not a lot of bass. Listen to this clip again. Okay, now that's super interesting to me because what we hear here is a really big difference in the low end and the amount of compression. The JM Pro kind of acts like our baseline. Our ears are getting used to what we're about to hear, right? So we're hearing that little kind of funky groove thing, and you hear this amount of bass. Immediate to me, the Thornbuckers kick up the amount of bass, and the bass is, maybe it's not even kicked up, it's more bellowy, right? It just sort of like resonates a little more. And then you get this extra level of compression. But when we go to the SSVs, man, all of a sudden it feels almost clamped down, like that kind of compression, like there's a compressor on, but there's not. We get like the compression of the pickups, and you hear that bottom end really rolled off. It almost tells your ears that this signal is not as loud. And that's an interesting thing too. It tells us it's not as loud, but those are sort of the other things in a band, highs and lows, where the guitar gets muddied up real quick anyway, and we get left with a sort of mid-range profile. So it's not surprising to me that I feel like the JM Pro with the SSVs, the gold one, cuts through a little more, and as a result, or maybe because of it, it doesn't have the extra low end that I would lose in the mix anyway. I feel like I can hear myself better with that guitar, and maybe that's because it doesn't put out as much competing information. But one of the things I have to have is chime, lovely high-end chimey tone. Now I want you to hear this. This is maybe the most shocking of the bunch. Because so far, I sort of would be of the opinion listening to these clips that the SSVs, especially after that last clip, are somehow not as high-endy. They're not as trebly, but I don't think that's actually true. Again, I think it's the mid-range getting sort of in the way or taking up all of the sonic space over that high end. Because listen to this sort of chime thing. Now the Suze is going to play something very similar to itself 3 times. And what I hear here is ample chime of all the pickups. Check it out. What? That was that. I didn't expect that, because what I heard there, and you know, YouTube compression, Facebook compression, it's all going to work out a little bit differently. What I hear there is the most like sort of natural, open, single coily high end belongs to the P90s. But the Thornbuckers, first thing I notice, that lower end compressed bass in that clip just sort of sealed the bottom end while the Thornbuckers really chimed over it. And I actually noticed a little bit of extra presence in the Thornbucker, meaning I think that if you looked at the frequencies that the Thornbucker and the S90 are putting out, the Thornbucker actually reaches a little higher in the frequency range. There's some extra high-end information that does seem to be slightly rolled off in the P90s. Now, they're both very chimey and stuff, but did you expect that from the SSVs? This is really interesting to me because in another clip, I would have said those are darker pickups, those SSVs, because of that extra low-end mid-range, and they are honky. But when you hear it by itself, its own bass is such that it doesn't muddy itself up. Depending on what you're playing, you can play the high end and the low end, and its own bass doesn't overshadow it. That's a weird thing compared to like the Thornbuckers, which it has a real strong bass. It almost needs that extra strong high end to be called a bright pickup. Does that make sense? Does it make sense? And does it even matter? Is anyone in a mix actually going to be able to hear the difference between an S90 and a Thornbucker? I'm not really sure. I'm not even sure that if you closed your eyes and listened to those earlier clips or the last video on the channel that you'd be able to pick it out. I think a lot of times we're just voting with our eyes. We like Thornbuckers because they're more expensive. We haven't heard a lot of people talk about the SSVs, or we're P90 guys. I think also the looks of the guitars play into it. You may like or dislike the way one guitar looks over another, and it's really hard to get away from that sort of bias. We're strange creatures, you know? Sometimes our mind tells us things that maybe aren't the truth, like you need 3 JM Pros. Seriously though, I think gear is for the player, and that's fine with me. For me, the JM Pros are just platforms. It's a platform. I love the bridges, I love an F-style guitar, but I don't necessarily want a Strat or a Tele. I like humbuckers and I like P90s, I like different pickups. Don't get me wrong, I love Strats, but it's not my go-to for P-Dub Sunday morning. If I can take one guitar out, it's probably not gonna be a Strat. And something about the different body style, I like that it looks a little bit different. I don't know, I just feel super expressive on it. Whereas on an instrument like this, it definitely affects the way I play, but this isn't a platform I want to stick with. I don't want one of these with single coils and one with humbuckers. To me, the JM Pro is just a little bit of a mix of everything. And whether that's a Strat or a Tele for you, or just a Jazzmaster or this particular Suhr instrument, you know, that's your business. I think in some ways, I like having a solid body Gibson Les Paul type thing. I like having a Stratocaster. I like having a Pine Tele and a fully hollow, you know, single pickup thing like this. This thing resonates like nobody's business. But I also like having everything the same except for those pickups. And then it's just like, which pickups do you want for your sound? I don't know, to me it almost feels like, which mic do you want for this amp? Or which amp do you want for this gig? It's just a way to change things up just enough to switch up your tone. It'll affect your creativity, but the tactile feel of the instruments are staying relatively constant. The complaints I get about other guitars aren't always there, and I don't do that dumb thing where I keep grabbing for a bar that's not there, because all my JM Pros just have it. If you came looking for answers, I don't have any more than that. But I think we've accomplished a couple things. Not only have I been able to show significant business use for these 3 JM Pros, which I can now write off on my taxes, but I think we can get to the real truth here. Pickups matter. We also had a great time. At least I did. I've been HW. Thank you so much for watching Tone Junkie TV. Don't forget to like and subscribe. HW, out.